Hey guys, it's Jenna. In today's video, we are going to be going over a brand new palette from Tarte, which I'm super excited about. So I just got my voice back recently. I'm a little bit sick right now, so if you do hear some congestion, I do apologize. I hope it is not too distracting for you, but I do have my voice back today, so I figured I would share. This is the Tarte Maneater After Dark palette we're going to be talking about. And this is actually a palette that Tarte sent me in PR. If you guys don't know, I am Canadian, and this is an Ulta exclusive right now. Because of that, it would be very hard for me in Canada to get this palette because we don't have Ulta. And Ulta does not ship to us in Canada. So this is a palette I'm really excited to review for you guys and let you guys know if I think it's worth it or not. I do have a lot of tips and tricks with this one that I do think will be the best way to use it, and also some expectations for you. So let's get right on into it. Now, first off, let's talk about the packaging of this palette. There are 24 shades in this palette, which is awesome, and they are all brand new shades. Now, when you actually see the palette itself, it is this really beautiful, large palette for sure, like extremely large. You guys can see, but I love the animal spots on the packaging. I really think that's really cool, and they're sort of like raised, so you can sort of feel them a little bit. It's a glossy black packaging, a little bit heavier in the hand for Tarte and larger, obviously, because it's a bigger palette. On the back, we have this golden, ultra fingerprinty back, but that's okay. It's actually really nice and sturdy, and I do feel like it's very well made. It's a really nice one. And then when you open it up, you see all the 24 shades. This palette is perfect for fall, transitioning from summer, like summer into fall, because we have those really gorgeous, rich oranges and yellows and browns. And we also have those pinks, the everyday friendly colors. You guys know that Tarte does those very well. When I think of Tarte, I think of everyday friendly colors, the colors that a lot of us wear on a day-to-day basis, the browns, the berries, the pinks, the golds. Those four categories Tarte nails, I feel like, every time, and it can come off a little bit redundant if you have many palettes from them, but they do seem to cater to the everyday makeup wearer that's not always doing bold looks. I think that's kind of the impression that I get anyways. It's the browns, pinks, golds, berries, the everyday friendly colors for work and more professional settings, let's say. You never know, right? It's just kind of my guess, but either way, they do these colors very well. So no doubt we're gonna have some of these shades in our collections already. What I love about this palette is the formulations and the ranges of them. So we actually have some mattes in here, which are really beautiful. And we also have some shimmers, and we have what they call sheens, which I'll talk about as well. There also are some embossments in some of these pans, the same animal spots that are carried from the cover onto some of these shades. And we also have, like I said, 24 shades in here. So 11 mattes, 9 shimmers, and 4 sheens. I also like how there's a lot of really nice foundation shades in here. So what I mean by that is shades that you can start off your look with. Some would argue potentially that there is some shades that might be similar. Like these two, for instance, have a little bit of a similar quality. They're not identical dupes, but they are very slightly different. So in my opinion, there could have been maybe a little bit more difference in those two shades, just kind of my thoughts. And then we have those nice anchoring browns. So Temptress I actually used today. We do have these nice warmer browns up here. And we do have that yellow if you're interested in doing something a little bit bolder. And same with this green. This green is actually a sheen, so it has a very light shimmer to it. So it's a little bit of a different green, but it's also a nice pop of color, and it does sort of remind me of animal colors, right? Like very nature colors and very animal, like the colors of animals' coats and stuff. That's why they're not super, super bright, I don't think. It's very everyday friendly that way. This is the Amazonian clay formulation. If you guys are familiar, it is Tarte's formulation. The mattes come off when you actually swatch them. They come off very lightweight, almost powdery. On a swatch, they need to be built up about, I would say, 1 to 2 layers. Otherwise, they swatch almost weaker. But when you actually apply them to the eye, they're very beginner friendly, very blendable, and very easy to layer. So this is something just to kind of consider. The swatches, depending on the shade, might be a little bit weaker than what you were expecting, but the performance on the lid is usually the more consistent way to tell if a shade is good or bad. We also have some beautiful foils in this palette here that sort of reminded me of like a Natasha Denona foil, actually. Like this one, Sundown, What on earth? This looks like it would belong in Natasha Denona's gold palette. It just looks so foiled, so beautiful. Like, what the heck, right? Same with Heated. This is a really gorgeous shade as well. Very, very opaque, very rich. You can see how gorgeous that is. So they have these shades in here that swatch really well as work really well on the lid, which we're going to talk about. They do say that you should use a brush for a wash of color, or you could use a fingertip for a more impactful pigment punch on the lid, and that's what I did today. There's a few different shades in here, like even the embossed shades don't have the exact same formula. So it's kind of what I was like getting confused by. I thought all of the embossed shades are the same formula, but some of them are more metallic than others. Some have a more subtle shimmer than others. And it's very interesting when you're actually working with this one. The first matte that I picked up today is Enamored, which is up here. This is a very beautiful peachy beige matte to start off with. It's almost the color of my skin tone. It's a little bit different, but this one is actually really gorgeous. Like I said, very dependable matte in this palette. When you actually swatch it on the finger, it's a little bit weaker, but when you're actually applying it on the lid, it's blendable, buildable, has about a medium coverage. You can build it to a semi-full. I wouldn't say completely full because a little bit of my veining can still be seen when you're actually working with this one. The way that these mattes work, I totally understand why beginners are very attracted to this brand, because it's just so easy to get a look together and for the shadow to look really basically effortless on the lid. Next, I went in with another matte. This is Temptress. Temptress is a taupey matte. It's really gorgeous actually, and the same kind of thing with that first matte. This one is very blendable as well, buildable, medium to full top opacity level, and this is one that also worked really well. Layered beautifully over top of that first shade. No concerns with fallout yet. I do have some fallout to report in the next steps, but so far the mattes are very consistent like I'm used to from a Tarte palette. We have the first shimmer. This is On the Prowl. So when I swatch this with a finger, the shimmer in this one is not as bold as the foiled ones I showed you earlier. So this one is more of a lighter shimmer, and you can see as I apply it to the lid, you get more of that pigment payoff for sure with a fingertip, but I still found it to be more on the soft side. And that's just typical of this shade. This shade actually does have softer shimmer compared to the foils I showed you before. So that's kind of what to expect. My voice is, I'm so sorry, my voice is going up and down. If you want more of what I have here, which is a bit more of like a shimmer forwardness, you can use the Pat McGrath Artistry wand here and kind of build that shimmer a little bit bolder. Same with glitter glue if you want, although it'll be a little bit of a messier kind of process. But I did find I got a little bit more of that shimmer to punch through when I use something like this. You don't have to though, and I don't believe that shade was intended to be as bold as it is on my lid because I did give it some help. This is more of a subtle shimmer shade versus some of those foils. Next, I went in with Intense, which is one of their foiled pinks. So stunning. And as you can see, applied it with a fingertip as well. You can use a dense brush if you are not a fingertip applicator type person, but it is a lot more impactful to do this, especially with the foils. You can see I have it on the outer portion of my lid there. Really, really stunning. And this is also one that applied beautifully. Just like the first shimmer though, there's some fallout. So I would 100% do your eyes first with this palette. That's a non-negotiable at this point, especially if you want to use the shimmers. If you don't, if you're just like, nah, I just want to do the mattes today, you don't have to worry about doing your base after, but if you want the shimmer, that's my biggest tip. It will fall a little bit on the face, and that's something that I did notice. I like how this look turned out with that pop of color, and it's not super, super bold. It's just a little bit of something to look at, but it is still something that you could potentially feel comfortable wearing to a more professional setting. This is still something that you can wear, I think, with some confidence. There's some color, but it's not too busy. And I really like that. And that's sort of what Tarte does really well. Like I said, those everyday staple shades with some pops of bold color when you want to go from day to night. Now that's how I created this look, and I purposely tested all of the formulations in this palette to kind of get that look. But do know that some of these shades, so especially the ones with the embossment, so the spots, this is kind of like my only critique, I would say. So the spots are elevated in the pans. So if you are using a fingertip and you go in like this, you might have a little bit of some inconsistency on the finger. It might not be completely even depending, because some of that embossment is actually a different level than the rest of the pigment. So that's the only thing. It's just a little bit raised. And because of that, I've noticed that when you have some pigment here and some pigment here, there's like a level, right? So when you're swatching, you might have some unevenness, and then when you place it on the lid, it'll be heavier in certain spots and softer in others. So just be a little bit careful with that. But that's really like the only like con I would say about this palette. And same with the fallout. The fallout is something with the shimmers, unfortunately, to expect. I have seen that with some other Tarte palettes though in the past, so that's not really the most surprising thing. But with this embossment, because it's not level, just keep that in mind when you're using a fingertip. I do think with a brush, the pans are large enough that you shouldn't see this inconsistency or unevenness, but you might still, so just be careful there. Now, do I think it's worth it? Okay, let's talk about this. There's a number of people that will say, well, these are shades I already have. Berries, browns, and golds I have a million times over. And if that's the case, this won't be for you, because there are some very similar shades that we probably have in our collections. But here's what I think is strong about this palette. I do like that we have some different formulations from them. I love the foils in here. I think they're really stunning. I also love that you can do some fall looks with this, so like warmer looks, but also have some of your everyday friendly shades. So this is one, if you're a Tarte fan, you will really appreciate this. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. I think you'll love it. If you're a beginner, I think you'll love it. But if you're a collector and you're like, you know what, I need something truly unique. Here's the thing. I don't know if it's like truly unique in the way that every single shade is a shade you won't have. You'll for sure have browns like this in your collection, you know, taupes, etc. But I do like the formulations here and how they're a little bit different for the brand. So just keep in mind with those shimmers, some of them vary, like I said, in intensity. Some of them are much more intense than others. There's more softer ones. So this is the sheen formulation. This is the green, if you guys can see that. So you can see that it is a sheeny shimmer, right? And then on the prowl, I'll just kind of show you the difference in shimmers and how they kind of look, right? On the prowl is the shade I used today. You can see it has more shimmer, but it's still softer, right? And then the difference between the foiled, which is, this is Sundown. So we have the sheen on the far right. I want to just show this to you guys based on the like finishes. We have the shimmer in the middle, which is still really soft shimmer. And then we have the metallic there, that foil, which has shimmer as well as that metallicness. So they're all a little bit different. And you can see they all work together beautifully. But those are some of the finishes to expect, as well as, of course, they're matte. They're matte being the consistent Amazonian clay, you know, matte formulation that has a little bit of a weaker swatch. So these are the mattes, one swipe, and you can see that they're pretty good, right? But some of them are a little bit weaker than that yet. But just know that these are so approachable that even if the swatch is a little bit weaker, it wouldn't be, for me, the biggest red flag yet, unless it doesn't show on the lid and it doesn't work well on the lid as well. Then I would be like, okay, something's going on here, right? Overall, very impressed with this palette. I think it's at a really great time because we are going into fall. So this is one that I would recommend for fall, actually. If you're wanting something new to kind of treat yourself, and this isn't a super luxurious price point either. At $52 American, it is still a little bit larger because it's a larger pan, much more product. So each of them is 1 gram by 24. So 24 total grams in the palette, but each of the pans is 1 gram. And it says it's made in Taiwan. So made in Taiwan, distributed by Tarte. 12 months shelf life. So I'm actually liking this one. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really great to use. I do think though, maybe tailor your expectations with some of those shimmers. Just swatch them first, or if you apply them on the lid, know that some of them are going to be more metallic, some are going to be softer, some are going to have a sheen, and those mattes are going to be very, very easy to use and very buildable on the lid. Can't wait to play with more of this palette. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope it was helpful for you, and until my next one, take care and stay safe. Bye guys!